What's up? This is Dr. Taylor Krick, and here's another study review. So on this YouTube channel, I just do reviews of papers that I find interesting, and I try to explain them in ways that will make sense in things that are actually applicable to normal people. So this paper is kind of heavy, but I'm going to explain it because it has an incredible application to normal people. So first, let me just read the title here. Aldehyde dehydrogenase 2 activity and aldehydic load contribute to neuroinflammation and Alzheimer's disease-related pathology. So let me explain that and just give an overview of this before we go through this paper. So aldehyde dehydrogenase is an enzyme. And the reason I'm so intrigued by this is because I see people where I suspect aldehyde dehydrogenase problems. They have an inability to tolerate aldehydes. They have an inability to tolerate alcohol. They have an inability to tolerate chemicals and fragrances and scents and things like that. And I will ask people, how would you feel if I locked you in Bath and Body Works? And they say, oh my gosh, I would panic. My brain would be on fire. I'd have to get out of there. And those are people with aldehyde dehydrogenase issues, or at least that's what's suspected in my mind. Now, histamine is cleared out by aldehyde dehydrogenase, so this can lead to histamine intolerance. But aldehyde dehydrogenase is a mitochondrial enzyme, so it leads to neuroinflammation, it leads to profound fatigue, and it leads to brain fog. So these are the symptoms that a lot of people have. And so that aldehyde dehydrogenase is associated with those symptoms. Candida, or yeast overgrowth in the gut, can fuel this. It's one of the major causes. Mold is another one. That many molds are aldehydes, or they release aldehydes. So if you've been exposed to environmental mold in a house, or if you've had yeast or fungus growing in your gut, you're more likely to have these issues because it's going to mess up this aldehyde dehydrogenase. So anyway, let's go into this. Aldehyde dehydrogenase deficiency causes facial flushing in response to alcohol consumption in Asians. So they call this the Asian flush. And they drink alcohol and their face gets flushed. And so, a lot of people have this. My sister has this. I get this occasionally. So I can tell sometimes when my aldehyde dehydrogenase is maybe slower than others, which is kind of a weird thing. Aldehyde dehydrogenase is linked to Alzheimer's. Other studies have linked chronic alcohol consumption as a risk factor in Alzheimer's. That's what they're going through and showing in this. So let me go through it and just explain, because even the abstract is a little thick. This paper is really thick, so I'm going to get to the end to this great picture. The methods are really long. There's a lot of it's an 18-page thing that you don't want to print because there's a lot of pictures that waste a lot of ink. Genes. Aldehyde dehydrogenase overexpression worsens mitochondrial defects. So there's just different little blurbs that I'm picking out here. Ethanol exposure, so drinking, exacerbates mitochondrial dysfunction, makes your mitochondria function worse, and it increases your aldehydic load. So alcohol is going to make this worse. Yeah, but let's get down to this one picture because that's what I'm going for. Gosh, long, lots of, again, graphs, charts. Check them out if you want. Let's see what this says. Ethanol metabolism, which increases aldehydic load through increased aldehyde accumulation, causes oxidative stress, not only in the liver, but also in the brain, heart, and skeletal muscle. And lipid peroxidation, so it oxidizes cell membranes, malondialdehyde, and so on and so forth, peroxidation markers. So again, I'm just picking out little things they're cool. But so let's get to here. Here's the bottom line. When you have a heavy amount of aldehyde load, whether it comes from a genetic defect, whether it comes from too much alcohol, whether it comes from Candida, that's not on here, whether it comes from other molds, whether it comes from working in a nail salon or being overexposed to formaldehyde or something like that, it disrupts, it loads the scale, And when the scale gets too heavy, you get mitochondrial dysfunction. This paper is associated to Alzheimer's. Big, big, big deal. But in the patient base that's before Alzheimer's, it's going to be fatigue, brain fog, inability to lose weight, trouble controlling blood sugar, things like that, because your mitochondria aren't functioning properly. I just finished a 3 series on mitochondria on my podcast, the Autoimmune Doc podcast. So this aldehyde load is just something that's really interesting to me. So let's just read this and then we'll wrap up. Ethanol injury leads to increase in aldehydic load and subsequent aldehyde adductions on mitochondrial proteins. Basically, it jacks up your mitochondria, depleting ATP, so you get less energy and more exhaust. Less production, your car's going slower, and it's putting out more smoke out the tailpipe. Not a good combo. Aldehyde dehydrogenase mutation further decreases the clearance of toxic aldehyde. So it's like if you drink a lot, you're going to overburden this system. If you have the genetic predisposition, your system's going to be overburdened more easily, causing additional reactive oxygen species generation and additional mitochondrial dysfunction. These pathology changes lead to neuroinflammation, thereby affecting glial cells' ability to clear cellular debris, which means that you get dust accumulating in your brain, which is amyloid beta. It'd probably be similar with alpha-synuclein. It'd probably be similar with tau protein, other things that accumulate, gunk that accumulates in the brain. In the uterus, it's going to be like endometriosis. It's all this, decreased autophagy and mitophagy. So you have more buildup of these things, and that is linked to Alzheimer's. So they're kind of connecting alcohol, aldehyde dehydrogenase, and I'm not downing alcohol at all, but if you have aldehyde dehydrogenase issues, it's a problem. Last thing I'll say, so if you stuck around to the end, this is like the golden nugget. Aldehyde dehydrogenase is reliant on B2, B3, niacin, or NAD. It's NAD dependent. So NAD is a supplement. B2, B3, iron, and molybdenum. So what I will often do is give additional molybdenum for this person. There are a lot of the molybdenum is often the missing piece, and I thank my mentor, Dr. Sam Yannick, for teaching me that gem. But really, really interesting paper here and how it impacts some of the most common symptoms. So if you have Candida, you're going to have sugar cravings, you're going to have some bloating, but you're going to have fatigue, you're going to have some brain fog, you're likely going to have some anxiety, different things. And this is the mechanism of how it damages the mitochondria.